Today on the channel, we put on our business hat and we dive into the year 2026, possibly when the dust settles, the most pivotal year in action figure history.
And the spirit of Ultimate Warrior will run forever!
Kyle here, and welcome back to the channel for another business hat discussion video. As today we're diving into 2026. We're right in the midst of it. We're living it. We're feeling good in 2026, something like that. But when the dust settles and we look back at 2026, I think we may say this could have been the turning point, maybe the most pivotal year in action figure history. There's so much change in the action figure industry, and we're going to dive into it here. We're going to talk about a lot of companies and a lot of toy lines, and the crystal ball will come out a little bit, but we're going to put our business hat on and we're going to talk about it. And along the way, we're going to see, and you're going to come across, and we're going to tell stories about why this is possibly the biggest year in action figure history. So maybe something to think about, something to stew on. Would love to hear your comments in the comments down below. But we're going to dive into it. We're going to go company by company. But first, let's go to Mattel. How about we start with Mattel and we'll lead through everything. And when I say all the companies, I'm not going to talk about every single company under the sun, just the ones that are referenced on this channel, unboxed on this channel, discussed on this channel. So put that asterisk in there as well. But a very pivotal year this year over at Mattel, a changing of the guards in more ways than one. As here we sit in May 2026, June 2026 is the launch of the brand new Masters of the Universe movie. Now, Masters of the Universe, a property that turned action figures on its head once upon a time in the 80s. I always talk about it on the channel. That is what got me into action figure collecting, was the Masters of the Universe when I was a very small little boy. And I still hold it near and dear to my heart, this hard blackened heart all these years later. But this is the most pivotal year for the Masters of the Universe since the infancy of the line back in the 80s. As we see it right here on this very channel, we got the Origin style figures, we got the Origin movie figures, we got the cartoon collection figures, we got the 2000X figures, we got the Chronicle figures, New Eternia, Masterverse, Club Grayskull, Pop the Color, head over there. In all points in between, there are so many action figures coming at us around the brand new Masters Universe movie that launches in June. Now, obviously, with any big summer blockbuster, action adventure, hero movie, whatever you want to call it, there's going to be a lot of licensed properties around it. We're seeing all these different drink cups and stuff that's going to be at the movie theaters. We're seeing clothes at Target and Walmart. We're seeing tie-ins with, I think I saw Frisky cat food or something like that with Battle Cat. We're seeing all kinds of stuff around the movie, all about promoting the movie, and then the action figures hopefully driving people to the movie, driving people to put out their wallets outside of the movie and collect some of that stuff, be it little kid, be it adults, be it all points in between. Like Starting Lineup Brand used to say, from 4 to 104. That's what they're hoping for over there at Mattel and the Masters of the Universe team. Now, there is a lot riding on this movie. This movie is a huge flop. You can all but say goodbye to Masters of the Universe for the most part. It'll go back down to just a couple of lines at best, maybe even just Club Grayskull, Mattel Creations. There is a lot riding on this property and the future of the properties of Masters of the Universe. In the best case scenario, Mattel's hoping this movie's a slam dunk. They get another movie out in like 2 years. They ride the wave in between of it. And Masters of the Universe comes and becomes what the Avengers were, the X-Men were to Marvel once upon a time, and still even to this day. So there is a lot riding on this. If it is a flop, it's going to set the Masters Universe brand. Do you think they're going to carry on all these different toy lines? That's not going to happen. It's going to get dialed way back. So if you're a Masters fan, you got to go see this movie. And I think if you're a Masters fan, you're going to go see the movie anyways. But it's hoping to get your brother and sister, your aunt and uncles, and all points in between, maybe even non-Masters Universe fans, to jump in, watch this movie, enjoy this movie, pay their money for this movie to ensure the future of Masters in the Universe. So extremely pivotal. 2026 will be a time to look back and say this was the end for now of Masters Universe, or the ramping up point to where we are in 2029 or whatever it is in the future. So that's huge for Mattel. But but that's not it for Mattel. Mattel, they got a Masters is probably the biggest thing in 2026, but when we're looking at 2026 into 2027, the changing of the guards are here, and we're moving and shaking, and Mattel is picking up a lot of properties. Now, we heard Todd McFarlane. I know you don't like to talk about this, but we got old Todd McFarlane on the couch here today. Mattel is taking over the DC license. We've seen the little kitty figures kind of already shown. We're seeing the big giant figures, once again, kitty figures shown right now, but we're waiting for the collector's edition ones. We know they're going to do similar to the WWE line with the main events, the elites, the ultimates, the different tiered figures, all points in between. It's all about merchandising. Follow the money, of course. But Mattel is taking over DC. It's officially announced here in 2026. It's ramping up to the beginning of 2027. That is pivotal. That is huge. And we'll get to McFarlane Toys and what that means for them. But it's a massive, massive property for Mattel. Hasbro has Marvel. Mattel has DC, the big two toy companies, at least as far as action figures go. Now we're going to see where things really go, where the battle lines are drawn. You have to think Hasbro, and we'll talk about them as well, are going to try to defend and step up. But there is a huge change into the guards here, especially knowing that it sounds like Mattel is going to go the same scale as Marvel Legends. I think that makes Hasbro a little bit worried, I would have to imagine. But that is a pivotal big-time year. But it's not done with Mattel. Of course, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coming their way in 2027. There is a lot of uncertainty on that. Not a lot is known about that. But there was the wording in there that Mattel is taking the master license on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That is a huge, huge thing. Playmates has had that for a million years. And oh, by the way, we're going to talk about Playmates in this video. But the master license is a big deal. Does that mean Mattel can prevent NECA from making turtle figures in the future? Could they prevent Playmates? Could they prevent Todd from the couch? All points in between who are making turtles. Let's be honest, there's turtles everywhere. Can Mattel put the gate up and say no more? It's only going to be via Mattel. And will they do something like the main event, Ultimates, Elites, like we see with WWE? Could we see that from Mattel? Mattel has a lot of cards with this one, with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's going to affect a ton of different companies if they choose not to lease out or agree to share some of that licensing and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, no matter what, follow the money. Whatever pays off the most for Mattel, that's what they're going to end up doing. So we got DC, you got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you got Masters Universe. Mattel is riding high right here with a lot of momentum. Where that leads, we're not sure. I think they're hoping for the Barbie momentum. Barbie gave them a lot of momentum with Mattel with that franchise. I think they're hoping for the same thing with Masters Universe. And if the Masters Universe is as popular as we hope it to be, they're hoping that carries on to some of their other properties. And last, but certainly not least in this channel's history, would be the WWE Mattel brand. We've got so many lines, so many sublines going. If you're a WWE fan, we're eating good in the neighborhood like Applebee's. It's like the all-you-can-eat riblets, Todd McFarlane. That's what it feels like here. But it is a monumental time to be a WWE fan. We're getting legends, we're getting new talents, we're getting different form factors, we're getting He-Man crossover, Street Fighter crossover. We got the LJN Mattel's back going on. There is a lot going on. I continue to see that probably going into 2027 and beyond. Not exactly sure when the license is up with WWE. 2030 possibly. I don't know. Nobody really knows. There's not a lot of talking about that. And the last contract was just kind of randomly announced, where the one before that, it was like, is it going to happen? What's going to happen? This one just seemed to be an afterthought. And it feels like WWE and Mattel have a good relationship. I think I say it all the time on the channel. It's great how Mattel knows their property. They know WWE. They have a good team working over there. And I'm guessing they work pretty good with WWE and the licensors, but never say never in the future. I also wonder, where is WWE going? Is it going to continue the momentum it's had recently, coming off the year of John Cena in 2025? How is 2026 going to net out for them? Feels like we're seeing peaks and valley, and it almost feels like we're on the momentum of a downturn in wrestling a little bit. Now, if wrestling gets less popular, it's not as popular as it was on TV and all points like that. That could lead to less kids being involved, which is going to hurt profits and all of that as well. So I do think WWE is the strong brand. Obviously, will continue to be a strong brand that has name value. They'll always be able to get money for it. But I wonder if we're coming upon a downturn. There's a lot of bad publicity about the ticket prices. We heard it a bunch around WrestleMania, but even some of the Raw and SmackDown stuff, they are adding house shows back, but money doesn't go as far as it once was for a lot of people. Things are tough out there, and at the end of the day, you probably got to feed your family over some inflated wrestling tickets. So all that combined could make some waning fan base. If little Johnny can't go to SmackDown, maybe he stops being so interested in wrestling, which will affect a lot of that stuff. So it'll be interesting where that all goes. But I do think as far as the what we know, and what's the kind of bet the house on right now for Mattel, it's WWE. They know what they're doing. They have a plan. They just kind of carry it on and carry it across the goal line is what they need to do. But the DC, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the Masters Universe has a lot of positivity, has a lot of momentum, but where it'll go, how it'll take off, will people like it all? That is to be determined very soon. So Mattel, a very pivotal year. But one of the ones we mentioned, Playmates. Now, if you're like me, when I think Playmate Toys, I think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It is so weird to live in a world where those two aren't combined. As Playmates, I think, got the license back in '87 and has had it ever since. That's a long time. That is a huge coup for Playmates and the Turtles brand to be partnered together so long. But it's one of those things where when you're in a long business relationship like that, I was a part of a contract that went on for 35 years that started before my time, that did come to an end, because sometimes you say, hey, is the grass greener? I don't know anything but this out there. And then you end up coming back to the dance that you came together. I don't know if that's going to happen for Playmates and Ninja Turtles, but Playmates and Ninja Turtles, and I think it was more the Ninja Turtles IPs and stuff, said, we're going to go somewhere else. We're going to try to get more money. And I think they look at somebody like Mattel being able to do a lot more from them than, of course, Playmates can. At the end of the day, you got Playmates, a big company, but you got Mattel up here. A lot more synergies with Mattel, a lot more eyes with Mattel, which equals more money. So that's where the Turtle license wanted to go to Mattel. Now, Playmates putting up a little bit of a fight. There's some kind of a lawsuit going on. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with that thing. We talked on the Toy News, had to get Zach Wilde involved. He has not got me the memo back. Did he get it to you, Todd? Hasn't got it to either of us back, but he's looking into it. Maybe you should reach out to Morgan and Morgan. They're stealing all kinds of stuff. They're doing power moves, just like we do on this channel, apparently. So if you're looking for power moves, you come here, or Morgan and Morgan, apparently. But there is some lawsuits going on. I'm not exactly sure what that's all about. But where does Playmates go when you're so closely locked into an IP and a relationship like that? When it breaks up, you've kind of lost your identity. What is Playmates' identity without Ninja Turtles? Now, they got some kind of like dungeon crawler guy or something that's more even like teen adult. That is an interesting move by Playmates. Are they going to try to move into some other things? Could we see them now saying, hey, we have all this turtle money that we got to use into something else. We got to fill that hole. And we're all about plugging holes. Todd, we'll get to you in a second. They're going to say, what can we do? What can we do to fill the void? Could they be reaching out to Jazwares, or more likely AEW? We'll get to Jazwares as well. A lot of foreshadowing in this video. But could Playmates say, hey, we'll take on AEW wrestling? They did that Lucha Libre figures many years ago, and honestly, that was probably the biggest wrestling figure flop on the mass retail variety ever. But they did do those Lucha Libre figures. Maybe they'll say, hey, let's get back into wrestling. Let's see what we can get out of AEW. Maybe AEW come to Playmates, because I think in most people's brain, they think of Playmates before they think of Jazwares and name recognition. I think if I asked my dad, or maybe that's not a good example, I asked my wife's parents, have they ever heard of Playmates or Jazwares? More likely they've heard of Playmates, not those Playmates. We've all heard of those Playmates, Todd. Get out of here. But maybe that's just me, but Jazwares is the bigger company still. But maybe Playmates tries their hand at wrestling. Maybe they try some of these other properties. Going to be very interesting to see where all that ends up going. But their identity is so tied to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is nothing but a huge blow for Playmates, which could honestly lead to them being bought out or merging with another company in the future. Be interesting to see where the Playmates story ends up going. But now diving over to Jazwares there. We know for all intents and purposes, we are done with AEW Jazwares. Tony Khan mentioned it, said he wouldn't speak on it, but said the future's bright. Didn't feel so bright for the Jazwares side. We know they did lay off their total design team. Just a few things left to ship out this year, and then that's going to be adios AEW. Can we get AEW figures from a Playmates, from a McFarlane, from a Hasbro? I really don't see, but where does it go from there? We're not really sure, but Jazwares, what could they end up doing? Now, Jazwares is going to be just fine. They got Pokemon, they got Squishmallows, and we've talked about it with the business hat in the past. Take a step back every once in a while. Jeremy Padawer was the greatest thing that was for AEW at Jazwares, because I have a feeling a lot of people wouldn't get AEW if it wasn't for Jeremy's passion for wrestling. He was holding that one together, and he could only hold it so long. You can only lose so much money or not make enough money for so long before people say, we got to cut bait or we got to change things. And there was no way to do that. And let's be honest, there was probably a Pokemon Squishmallow, just one, of Pikachu or something, a Charizard, whatever it may have been, that one SKU probably made more profit for the Jazwares company than the entire AEW line combined. Think about that. That's how big Pokemon Squishmallows are. Jazwares way down the totem pole as far as things go. AEW Jazwares way down the totem pole. So where does the future go for Jazwares? I'm not sure. I hope it's something that you and I are interested in, that we can study and watch with the channel. But I don't know. They don't really have any brands that I would see unboxing on the channel or anything. There is talk of them getting some Jason figures. Not sure if it's going to be Fortnite Jason figures or where that'll go. But Jazwares seemingly for this channel doesn't really have anything that's going to interest any of us here. I don't think we're going to start talking Squishmallows and Pokemon and things like that. So be interested to see where Jazwares goes. But for a lot of us, they're probably going to be totally off the radar and forgotten about, which isn't terrible. We're not the consumer. We're not the audience for them, unless you have kids that are into Pokemon and Squishmallows. So AEW Jazwares, pretty much the end of me thinking of Jazwares for the most part. Maybe you as well. Now turn our attention over here to the big dog, Todd McFarlane from the couch. That's a guy I got a vested interest in because, Todd, you and I have become quite friends. Best friends, I would go that far. And we've had a lot of discourse, a lot of discussion over the years here on the channel. And it's nice to be able to get my thoughts out there and talk to somebody that, is of certain intelligence, as you are, of course, wiggling those toes like a madman. But McFarlane, it's a huge pivotal year for that company as well. Todd, feel free to write any of this down, take it home, take it back with you, whatever you want to do. I'll come in for the meeting, whatever we need to do. But it's a pivotal year for McFarlane Toys. That DC hole is a huge hole. It's a gaping hole, Todd. It's a gaping hole that how do they fill it? And we've seen it from McFarlane lately. I wrote down a few things right here. You got things like Poppy's Playtime, whatever that is. The Image Founders series with a lot of the different Image characters that Spawn was a big part of. And of course, Spawn figures as well. You didn't lose that license. That's for sure. You got UFC statues, maybe moving into figures. We'll see if that happens. NHL, NFL, NBA, mascots. There's a lot of different stuff that Todd is trying to fill the hole left by DC at the end of the 2026. Once again, can all those properties combined work that way? I don't see that happening. We're ramping up Mortal Kombat. You're exactly right. But I don't see all of those combined to equal, of course, the McFarlane DC multiverse. As much as I like Shadowhawk, how many Shadowhawks are going to sell compared to just your random Batman figure? Let's be honest on that kind of stuff. So McFarlane really needs something. They need a huge brand to come in that could really spin the industry around, spin it on its head, Todd McFarlane. And that's where I think AEW, I know a lot of people don't like the figures at McFarlane. They don't like the pin joints. I'm one of them. I'm not a pin joints guy. But there's a lot of people who wouldn't like them going to McFarlane, but it kind of makes sense. And if you want a lot of figures from a line, McFarlane's one that'll crank out a lot of figures. That's not all he's cranking out, but he'll crank out those figures. So AEW would be amazing over there at McFarlane. Would the figures be great? I don't know, but to get something as close as we can with Jazwares McFarlane, they love the pins. It'd be an interesting marriage, I do think. Will it happen? I don't know, but it would be a very interesting marriage. I would like to see it personally, just for something different. And I think it would be one of those things that really sets everything on its head and sets it differently. I could see McFarlane coming out with play sets, all kinds of different stuff, as we have seen. So it'd be an interesting example there. But I am a little bit worried about McFarlane Toys and what the future holds for them. But we'll stay tuned. We'll follow it here on the channel. Speaking of another one I'm a little bit worried about, could they end up getting AEW? It is Super 7. Super 7, they had some management changeover about 2 years ago, year and a half. What is time once again? And we've seen a big change in the company. The Ultimates that we seemingly got new Ultimates every single week, they are few and far between. They just get peppered out once in a while. Not a lot of fanfare either. Price points are always very high on the Ultimates, and a lot of people don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. We used to see reactions all the time. We still see a lot of reactions, but not the amount we once did. And we're seeing a lot of kind of one-off posters and Sofubi style figures and statue type stuff. But it really feels like Super 7 is dialed back big time. So I don't know where that ends up going. Do they ramp back up? Are they kind of in the midst of a reset to start going hard once again? Or are on the verge of being bought out or on their way out? That is an interesting one. We talked about Playmates, maybe Super 7. They could be merged into something else. Maybe Playmates and Super 7 go together. Maybe Super 7 and McFarlane team up. Who knows where it could end up going? But I don't see a lot coming from Super 7 in the future. It seems like the Turtles is all but over for the most part over there. A few Ultimates, but as far as the Playmate style ones, it's been over for over a year now. Where do we go with some of these licenses? Where do we go with some of these brands? We'll just have to wait and see. Super 7 will be interested to see if they're at San Diego Comic-Con here in a couple of months. If you remember back to last year, they did not have the big booth like they usually had. They did close their stores, one of them in San Diego. So I'm not sure where the future of Super 7 is going. I guess more on that very, very soon. But one company that's smaller, much like a Super 7, but seems to be making some power moves once again, is Boss Fight Studios. Now, if I remember correctly, like a year and a half ago, they were laying off people as well. But now they're adding a lot of bodies and a lot of Hasbro people. Apparently, they're in the vicinity of Hasbro, the offices there. Hasbro we're going to get to, but some of the moving and shaking and moving of offices, I think, has created some friction with some employees. Some people not wanting to move, some people not wanting to do that commute, and in turn have left the company. The biggest ones we've heard just recently, Tony and Lenny from the G.I. Joe Classified Series team. A lot of people saying the Classified Series is going to fall apart. I guess that'll be something we'll have to stay tuned to in the future here. But what is Lenny and Tony going to be doing at Boss Fight? Is Boss Fight going to make a military line? Are they going to start branching out and getting some G.I. Joe licensing from Hasbro? We see Hasbro willing to license anything out. At the end of the day, money talks. If they can collect the money and somebody else does all the work, I could see that happening. We heard about Hasbro in Power Town, didn't we? Maybe more on that too. But it's an interesting turning point for Boss Fight is what's going to happen, because as much as I like military style figures, and there's a lot of companies making them, of course, so many of them, but to me, it's about the G.I. Joe nostalgia. It's about the G.I. Joe that I remember as a little kid. It's bringing that kid with modern style figures and stuff. That's the enjoyment there. Yes, it's cool when you get a military style figure of a new character that you've never heard of, but you don't have the deep nostalgia. And I don't know if you guys collect like I do, but I collect based on nostalgia and what warms my heart. What warms my heart, Todd McFarlane? I don't know if Boss Fight can do that. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Now, Boss Fight, another company that's done wrestling figures. They've done MLW figures. They've done Lucha figures. Could they be a company that could be talking to AEW? That's a possibility. And now they're adding extra people to their team. I'm not sure, but if you think of Tony and Lenny coming off G.I. Joe, you'd think you'd want to use that expertise for a G.I. Joe style line, not necessarily a wrestling line, but you never know. You never know where that may go. Now, talking about Hasbro, of course, connected to Boss Fight a little bit there, sharing of talent in some ways. Hasbro seemingly licensing everything out. I don't anticipate them to pick up the AEW license. I know a lot of people are hoping for that, but they do have Transformers. They do have Marvel. They got the G.I. Joe. They got a lot of points in between. I don't know where it ends up going with them, though. It feels like they're at a real turning point. They're moving their business. They're moving their offices. I know what that's like for my company day job as well. You move the offices, hours away, whatever, you're going to lose some employees. And you're not just going to lose designers. You're going to lose that lady that does the admin. You're going to lose that secretary. And those people, they don't get out there. They don't get pushed. They don't get the name recognition, but they're a big part of the wheel that makes that company go along. You've had that same secretary. You've had that same data entry admin person forever. They know the systems. They know the style. They know all the intricacies. You lose somebody like that, it is a huge loss. I can tell you that from my own day job in the world. So Hasbro's going to have a really interesting game. And then you see Mattel with all these new properties they're getting. What is Hasbro going to do differently? What are they going to get that's new? Or are they going to rest on their laurels, rest on their IPs, farm some stuff out, and maybe just kind of move and shake in that? Or are they going to make some big power moves this year in 2026, 2027? It is to be determined. I do wonder what the Marvel Legends team's working on over there. Are they saying, hey, we got to step up our game? If I'm them, I'm stepping up my game with Mattel coming in with DC. They better do something to really set themselves apart. And I think, put my business hat on, they got to come with something powerful. Whenever Mattel says we're launching DC, let's say it's January 1st, their Elite style, Ultimate style figures are coming to market. Man, oh man, Marvel better step up with something huge around that time frame. I don't know if they change cost and go a little bit cheaper, try to undercut the competition, or if Mattel does the same thing. It's going to be a very interesting time to see where that all ends up going and some of the business jockeying for positions go between Mattel and Hasbro, because let's be honest, they're competing with each other and they're going to want to take some love away. Can Mattel push Batman, and can they counteract with Spider-Man over there? Could we get something big? I wouldn't be shocked to see the Hasbro team come with a lot of heavy hitter Marvel Legends first of next year. Maybe some characters we've never had before. Maybe some re-releases of some very important characters, some improved characters. Maybe Maximum Series style stuff of Wolverine and some of the heavy hitters. It'll be very interesting to see how that dives in, because that is the one property that I think could really affect their line a little bit. As everything, as I said before on the channel, putting the business hat on, everything in the action figure line in the aisles is competition. It's all competition at the end of the day. That little kid, he might buy a Transformer, he might buy a wrestling figure, he might buy a Fortnite figure, but it's all competition. But when you think of true competition, you're thinking DC, Marvel, WWE, WCW, or AEW, whatever you want to say. That's the true on competition. And I do think, much like we saw with Jazwares and Mattel, I think we're going to see that with Hasbro and Mattel, that it's going to make everybody a little bit better. And it's going to make that Marvel team to step it up a little bit more to counteract whatever we're going to see from Mattel DC. So very interesting time as well. That's something to watch out with Hasbro. And then Jada Toys, one of the smaller companies. I talked recently on a question of the week on the channel during weekly purchases, the mail call of the week with my wife, Angie. Shout out to her. We talked about Jada Toys being the best value in action figures, and really are. They are amazing figures. They're a good price point. You really feel the value on those. The biggest issue I have with Jada Toys is the slow rollout of stuff. You know, the cereal mascots. It feels like we get maybe 2 of those a year. When are we going to get Fred and Barney? Those got to be coming, but those were promoted at San Diego Comic-Con last year. Street Fighter, it's been a slow rollout. Scooby-Doo, been a slow rollout. Everything just moves at a snail pace over there. And until they can constantly get out there with something all the time to get their name, because you ask the average Joe, they've never heard of Jada Toys. So they got to step up their game a little bit. But the form factors are beautiful. The price point is beautiful. Hopefully they can be consistent and they can stay with that. Now, personally, as a guy that collects a lot of action figures, I like the Jada Toys style because it feels like an ancillary collection. It's not like I have 7 Street Fighter figures or 7 Scooby-Doo figures coming at me every single month. It's a slow rollout, and that is something nice. If you collect a lot of action figure lines, you do appreciate some of those slower lines instead of like WWE Mattel that has something basically every single week between one of their brands coming out. So Jada Toys, one to watch at, see where they go in the future, because I think they really could step it up, and I think there's a lot more sales they could be grabbing if they wanted to, and it'll be interesting to see what more properties they pick up in the future. One company that we've talked about a lot in the past, heck, I even wrote a book on the company, Jakks and the Jakks Class Superstars once upon a time. Pick up the book at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. But Jakks is still around. Obviously, they make a lot of Super Mario figures. You see those all over the place with the movie recently released. But we also know about the Simpsons line over there. And that Simpsons line has a lot of similarities to the AEW Jazwares line, if you ask me. A lot of peg warmers that stop the forward momentum. There was a lot of series that people never saw at retail, couldn't get because, unfortunately, the pegs were clogged with Series 1, maybe Series 2. And I mentioned that at the infancy of the line. I said, these just aren't moving. It makes me worried about the future. And now we're seeing that. We're not seeing the Simpsons figures like we used to. We're not getting a lot of announcements for new figures. Is the line dead again? It sucks to be a Simpsons fan. I feel bad if you're a huge Simpsons fan, because after Playmates lost that license, and who knows, maybe Playmates dives back into it. Maybe re-release everything. They could do that. But Jakks jumped in after Super 7, unfortunately got it canceled, and that's a whole nother fiasco that was very disappointing. But we had new hopes. A new hope rose with Jakks, started off really hot. Now it's pretty much almost feels like it's dead in the water. There's going to be a king-size Homer out very soon. I guess a one-off deluxe figure possibly. But where's the regular waves, and are they going to hit traditional retail? I don't know, but outside of the Simpsons, there's not a lot going on with Jakks, but who knows? Maybe Jakks wants to get back in the wrestling figure business. Could that be? Could they be another one that would pick up AEW? Be an interesting concept. I just don't know how those figures would be, honestly. It feels like Jakks leans towards more kiddie-style figures. Even the Simpson figures feel very kid-like in the articulation and stuff. They still work for an adult collector, but they feel more kid-like than maybe some of the other brands. That's me personally there. Now, diving into some of the ancillary stuff, some of the boutique style lines and toy companies, maybe. I'm talking wrestling here. We're going to go to Collect Major. Now, Collect Major, the rise of Collect Major basically since COVID, cutting their teeth once upon a time with their Major Bendy's line, kind of based off the Just Toys, got them going into business, got them into the big rubber guys, and now Major Stars. Now we're seeing a company that's really taking off. But as we see with a lot of companies, sometimes getting bigger actually hurts the company in the long run. And are we seeing a little bit of that with Collect Major? You guys tell me. But I would tell you, Bendy's seemingly all but done at this point. I think the novelty has worn off, and the collector fan base has worn off a lot on that. We haven't heard a lot of new Bendy's coming out. The latest is the 2-pack with Sabu and Joey Janela. I think that's available to order right now for maybe August. But outside of that, it's pretty much done in the Bendies department. They are pushing the major stars very, very hard. That's the Funko-sized packaging with articulation. A neat concept. I'm just not sure if that's one that a lot of people are after. That's, once again, you guys would have to tell me. But the major stars seems to be one they push very hard, but it just doesn't feel like it's catching on with the fan base. I know they want to branch that out to other lines and other things, but it just doesn't seem like it has the legs that maybe the big rubber guys, who we're going to talk about in a second, have. It'll be interesting to see where major stars go in the future. They had some major hiccups with that Series 1 that really slowed a lot of their momentum, it kind of felt like. But it'll be interesting to see where the major stars go in the future. Have to imagine they're cheaper to produce than the big rubber guys, possibly. I would think so. But I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze. And at the end of the day, you can't keep throwing money at a losing effort. And I'm not sure how the sales have been. Obviously, they don't share that. But I think they do need to rise up, because I don't hear a lot of chatter in the interwebs around the major stars like I do the big rubber guys, in all honesty. But the big rubber guys playing a lot of hits for somebody like me. I was an LJN kid, so I do enjoy these. I don't enjoy the wait times. I don't enjoy the price point on these, but we also understand this isn't Mattel. There's no way they're going to be able to do these a lot cheaper than Mattel, who has massive factory, massive connections. But there is interest in a lot of people lately with some of the lead times on these things. Now, the major Collect Major website does have a spot on there you can click, and it'll update the wait times and tell you where stuff. And we've had a lot of delays forever with the big rubber guys, going back to the infancy of the line, as we do know. It is very unfortunate. I say it all the time on the channel, not just about them, but other toy companies. If you're going to take pre-order money in February and you say it's going to be here in September, just say November, just say December, and everybody knows what they're getting involved with right then. If you do deliver in September or August, you look like a hero. I'm getting your figures cheaper or faster to you. You look like a hero. But when you miss September and it comes in November or December, then you're a villain. You're holding the money too long. It is frustrating. Nobody likes people sitting on their money, myself included. I do understand it, but recently I just went to their website and I looked at all the pre-orders I have. I have a lot of money out there with them right now. So things got to start speeding up a little bit more. I know they've moved warehouses. They've moved factories. They've had growing pains. And I think a lot of us understand those growing pains. And kudos to them for being out front and usually talking about it. Obviously, they have a podcast they can talk about each week. They have Mike Canick out there who is on the Facebook groups, will update stuff as well. So it's easier to get answers from them than it would be from like Hasbro or Jakks or something like that. But I hope the lead times get shored up a little bit. It would be nice if maybe they took a little bit of a break and said, hey, until some of this stuff delivers, let's stop taking pre-orders. Let's stop announcements, because I think that is upsetting a portion of the fan base. And you can never make everybody happy, but you got to be careful, especially in these smaller boutique companies. But I understand them. They need to get money in those pre-orders to keep bankrolling everything and moving things along. And guess what? It isn't a nonprofit. They want to put some money in their pockets as well. So they got to keep moving and grooving. Now, Matt Cardona obviously is with WWE now. He's busier than ever before, you would have to think. So is he taking his eyes off of this a little bit more? I'm not exactly sure. Canick's the man over there. I think he's the guy that's most in charge of the day-to-day stuff. And Canick does a great job. But I do think they need to slow the roll a little bit here. We got to start fulfilling some pre-orders a little bit faster. Now, I've heard a lot of people lately, I didn't even hear about this issue until literally yesterday. I had 2 people in the comments reach out to me, talk about it, but they're having some quality issues with their big rubber guys over time, that the skin is starting to yellow and have some spots and stuff on it. Now, I just briefly looked at mine. I don't have those problems. Hopefully, I never have those problems, but that's not a good sign if all of a sudden the figures are starting to degrade and they're starting to fall apart. I hope that isn't the case going forward. That would be a huge black eye for the company, because let's be honest, nobody's a scientist. I'm a bit of a scientist, Todd McFarlane. You know, I'm kind of the heir to Mr. Wizard and Bill Nye the Science Guy and Beekman, of course, from Beekman's World. I'm kind of the heir to that, but by no means. I've got a C average in science throughout my life, so I'm not sure I'm the guy to bestow this on, but I'll do it. I'll wear the hat. I'll do it. But if they're going to have quality issues and things are disintegrating, falling apart, getting the Jakks sticky disease, things like that, like a year down the line, you're going to turn a lot of people off from buying. Like, these are going to disintegrate in a year. They're going to get sticky in a year. They're going to fade in a year, whatever it may be. I'm not exactly sure, but I can say for me, I don't have any issues. Now, I don't know at all if it depends on where you're storing your figures. We talk about that a lot. There's no light in my basement here where they're stored. There's no way of the sun getting on them. It's temperature control. They got a nice filtering system, all that. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but at the end of the day, if you have them out in sunlight, you don't want them fading. You don't want them doing that. But it'll be interesting to see where that ends up going. Like I said, I just heard about this yesterday. I'm not sure if other people have heard about that. I haven't heard them comment on it. Maybe I missed it. I'm not exactly sure. But we'll see where that goes with big rubber guys. I would hate to see that to be an issue widespread where it would hurt sales and hurt the business. But that's something they got to address. And that would be for somebody in the scientists for the plastics to figure out all that thing there. So I don't know where that ends up going. And one other thing about big rubber guys, I think they got to be extremely careful. They have branched out to, of course, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Sylvester Stallone with Rambo. They've branched out from the big rubber guys a little bit. We got the monster in your pocket style figures. I think they got to be extremely careful with that kind of stuff. Don't forget what brought you to the dance wrestling figures. It is fun to branch out, but people only have so much income. You got a lot of people that are completionists. Those people will dive out. They will drop out. And if all of a sudden you're like, well, I don't like Rambo, I'm out. Maybe I don't need this Arn Anderson. I don't need this. Then you start losing other sales. It is dangerous. It's kind of the Walmart approach. A lot of people want to get their wares into Walmart. I've seen over the years so many food companies that finally get into Walmart and they can't handle Walmart and they end up losing their whole business. They go bankrupt. Not saying that's going to happen to Collect Major, but I think they got to be a little bit careful on their selection outside of the big rubber guys. I know they want to do other properties outside of that, but I think it's a slippery slope. And let's be honest, we know Collect Major, we know the big rubber guys, Major Bendy's, all that, via Matt and Brian, who are wrestlers in the wrestling world, the wrestling figure community. They don't quite have that swagger outside of the wrestling world. Jean-Claude Van Damme, Rambo figure is going to be a little bit harder to sell. People don't take notice of them because they're just another long line of different IPs out there. In the wrestling world, they're taken a little bit more serious because they're actually wrestlers. They're in the wrestling bubble. None of them are in the Jean-Claude Van Damme bubble or the Rambo bubble or anything else like that. That's going to be a harder sell for them. I know they have people working on that. They have people, but that all equals money. I think it's a little harder to make a buck off Rambo than it would be, once again, Arn Anderson, for example. So I think that is a watch out for the future for the big rubber guys. I think they got to be careful with the major stars. Major Bendies have been dialed back. They got to get the quality control and the timely control on the big rubber guys going, and then be careful of what they dance outside of the rail of wrestling. And that's just my opinion, though. So we'll see. Prove me wrong. That's what I'm going to say. But I am very excited. The big rubber guys are possibly my favorite thing to collect. LJ and Mattel's, I'll throw in that as well, even the Latunis a little bit. And speaking of Latuni, I think they're another company that's coming along. Had a lot of good publicity. I've unboxed a lot of their figures here. It just seems like there's a kamikaze release schedule with them. I would like to see more of a streamlined thing, a better calendar system. It just feels like they come at you at all time. You're not sure if there's a Giant series, a WrestleMatic series, a LJN style series. I would like to see a more streamlined approach to all of that stuff. And once again, that's just me personally there, because I do think it gets a little bit cloudy and hard for people to follow. They got to streamline it somehow. So that's my opinion on that one. KWK, that's kind of the consistent ship. I love their process here. I think more companies should adopt the KWK model, and I think there's some tweaks that could be done. But I like the way KWK doesn't overwhelm us for the most part. You get one, maybe two figures a month, sometimes three with the Club KWK. Pop your collar for them too. You get a couple of figures a month. You have a pre-order window. You have it shipping, and it feels like you're always ordering something and something's being shipped to you. It's very consistent, very steady. And it's not something that's super overwhelming where you got 10 different figures and you get surprise drops all the time. It's like, oh, I missed it. I missed out. You usually know what you got. I got a 30-day window, or hey, here's a 1-of-100 that's going up. First come, first serve. And they don't sell out just like that. So you got some time. So I appreciate things like that. Reminds me a little bit of the G.I. Joe Figure Subscription Club. Once upon a time, you get 2 figures every single month, like clockwork. You pay your money, you get your stuff, and there's no real delays outside of the ones that you just can't control every once in a while. But it does feel like a good system KWK has. They've been up and down in some of the quality control. You know, the La Resistance figures were a little weird. The Taka Michinoko had some glossiness to the face. But then on the other hand, PN News and Manitar could be top 5 retros ever released as far as the modern day retro scene. So they've had some amazing figures. We got some heavy hitters around the corner. Dory Funk Jr. coming, I'm very excited for. So KWK, I think they just got to keep doing the constant learning, constant improvement. They just got to be careful they don't get too far out. We know we got O-ring style figures. They're going to make another figure line next year. We'll see where that all ends up going. Title Run Toys, kind of up and down with the quality I have seen. It'll be interesting to see where they go. Very interesting character selection, giving us some first form style factors. So I think that is a key to them and their future success. Diving in, getting figures we've never had from other toy lines before. I think that's a huge thing for all of these companies to try to do. But it'll be interesting to see. They keep doing constant learning, constant improvement as well. We'll see where they end up going. Figure collections, another one, kind of start and stop, but we have had some good retros from them. We'll see where their Bone Crushers line goes in. It sounds like that's not setting the world on fire. We got 2 more Macho Men in that line in the future. The figure collection's been a lot of fun, a lot of different lines, power-packed wrestlers. It's just one of those ones that kind of is in the background. They're not in your face as much as maybe the Grapplers and Gimmicks and Zombie Sailors and stuff, but they do put out pretty good quality figures. Interesting to see where they go in the future as well. Zombie Sailor Toys. What about Pinnacle? What about the Heels and Faces line? A lot of fun releases, a lot of stuff, a lot of delays though, like a lot of these other companies. Very interested to see what happens with the Pinnacle. Could we get those a little bit faster? It would be nice to get a couple of series a year, maybe 3 series of Pinnacle a year. Heels and Faces, it feels like those come pretty kamikaze as well. It'd just be interesting to see how he continues to learn and improve as he's been going for quite a few years now. What will we see that's new and different that's going to set the world on fire? And Zombie Sailor Toys as well, diving outside of wrestling for a lot of things. You know, we're getting the Army of Darkness stuff and Bruce Lee stuff we've seen. Got to be careful with that kind of stuff because people know him from wrestling. Will they jump off? A little bit harder, a little bit more pricey to get other lines like that. But you know what they say, no risk, no reward. So we'll see where that ends up going. Grapplers and Gimmicks, a favorite of mine. I love their retro style figures. Very Hasbro-like to me. I enjoy their releases. You know, they seemingly kind of die down a little bit, and then all of a sudden you get like 6 figures at once. Dies down a little bit, 6 figures at once. We'll see where the Regime line goes. The Godwins were the first releases. I think most people were pretty impressed with that, and I am hoping personally that we see like the Godwins that were first released from Grapplers and Gimmicks to the latest Godwins in the Grapplers and Gimmicks, night and day improvements. I'm hoping the Regime line continues to improve just like that. So that'll be something to pay close attention to in 2026 into 2027. We got Top Rope Collectibles. Very interesting. A little bit of issues here and there, but I am very interested because nobody else is doing this Galoob style figures. And I think they have a huge opportunity to maybe take some share out of the marketplace. I think these upcoming Danhausen figures look really amazing, but they got to get a little bit more consistent is what they need to be. And I think they're working on all that stuff. They're pretty much out there on social media talking about this stuff. Epic Toys, another fabulous retro toy line. They do a good job consistently as well. I wish they had a little bit more quick release schedule. It feels like it's just not out there in front like a lot of these other companies. I think they got to do a better job of getting out in front of things and talking things, promoting their wares. I understand you don't want to promote all the time and just, oh, here's Epic Toys again, Epic Toys. But I think they are a sleeper line. They have some of the best retro figures, but you just don't hear about them. You don't see them discussed as much. It'll be interesting to see what their marketing strategy will be in the future. I know they've had some issues. The Killer Bees and the Islanders set had some issues with the post office and stuff. But I'm hoping they can settle in and get a little consistent release schedule. Would love to see more of these companies adopt something like KWK, not overwhelming us, and just like clockwork, you can anticipate and do that. I think Epic would be really a game changer if they could lock in on stuff like that. So we'll see where that ends up going. WrestleFeds, we've had the British Bulldogs, and those possibly are the most surprising toys we've had of the last couple of years as far as the retro space. Those figures were absolutely amazing. We've seen images of the upcoming Macho Man. Absolutely amazing. WrestleFeds could be a real player here in the future. Would be nice to get them on a quick schedule as well. Maybe if you're going to release 4 different Macho Man figures or whatever it's going to end up being, put one out in June, one out in July, one in August, one in September. Keep your name out there. Keep the Macho Man love out there. And I think when you release 4 at once, people are like, I can't get them. I'm just going to pick and choose. But if you do one at a time, you'll get people that'll buy every single one. So I would love to see that. If they could do 4 Macho Man in a row and then 4 whoever in a row, I think that would be a game changer for them. So that's something to look at in the future. Power Town, I don't even know what to say at this point. We've all been ready for pain for like the last 4 or 5 years here on the channel. Every Saturday we update Power Town. We know Power Town apparently got the WW or the Hasbro IP. What is that? What are they going to, they want to like use the Hasbro something? I don't even remember what that was. Just another tall tale is what it felt like. But Power Town had the world by the balls. They really did in the wrestling figure community, and it all slipped away. I think Steve is crazy. Steve Rosenthal over there. He is crazy if he thinks there's somehow they can come back from this whole mess. I would maybe possibly buy something if it was in stock and it was absolutely game changing. But so many people will be done with this company forever, and everybody is done with the pre-order model. Honestly, most of us don't even feel we're going to get our figures. Hopefully we do. I don't expect it in 2026, maybe 2027, just a couple years late. I just don't see how this company comes back from all the bad publicity. I just don't see it happen. Whoa, stop the clock. Forgot 2 companies I wanted to talk about when I was looking at my notes. Forgot about Matt Maniac's Nerd Closet. I do think they are doing a very good job over there. Powers of Pain, Legion of Doom, Road Warriors, Demolition, Major Players, Hardys. We've had a lot of the great teams, Steiner Brothers. Love what they're doing over there. Danhausen's going to be fun. Paul Ellering around the corner. First to market, Ole Anderson. A lot of hits being played with this new form factor stylization figures, whatever you want to call them. I do think the watch out for them is they're going to have to get some new arms and torsos and things. They got to keep evolving because you can't just keep going to the same body wells over and over. You got to mix them up, make them as different as you possibly can. I don't think they're quite there yet, but they're on the cusp of that. But hopefully we'll see some new designs as far as bodies go here in 2026 and 2027. Ringside Collectibles, great friends of the channel, as we know, save 10% with code Kyle. You guys know that by now. Ringside's been a crazy one here, and one thing putting our business hat on, they were the primary seller for the most part of AEW Jazwares figures. That's a huge miss. They have a huge warehouse. They want to fill that warehouse up. What are they going to put in there instead of Jazwares? Could they take over the AEW line? Is there a possibility? I would think at best we could see them do the unsanctioned. We saw TNA. We saw the Road Warriors. Could we see unsanctioned AEW? If they do that, you're looking at only a couple of figures a year most likely. But I wouldn't be shocked to see a couple of AEW talents over there at Ringside, because Ringside at the end of the day, much like McFarlane Toys, they got to plug those missing holes. They need something to capitalize on those sales. They don't want those sales just to disappear. So I do anticipate Ringside to do something about that. Do they take another toy line in-house? Do they ship other toy lines? Do they gain other wrestling toy lines in their warehouse? That'll be something to pay attention to. But I do continue to think that we'll see more TNA. You would think, right? TNA figures, unsanctioned classic superstars. Got to think Macho Man would have to be right up there. I have to think they're going to lean into those, maybe a little harder to fill some of that Jazwares void, and it might fill it with some AEW figures as well. But it'd be very interesting to see what happens there. They also have the Bell to Bell collection at Ringside. I'm not sure if that's going to continue on. I'm not sure if that's a huge moneymaker for them. I don't know. We don't know their financials. But I think a lot of us are looking for more of the unsanctioned style figures, and it'd be interesting to see where they go in the future. I fully expect to see at least 1 or 2 more releases this year from that line, and Ringside does a real good job keeping that underneath their hat for future. So we'll see where all this ends up going. We got 3 Joe Hendrys were the last ones. They're going to get the most out of their molds like a lot of these other companies. But we've had Joe Hendry, we've had Demolition, we've had the Road Warriors. What could possibly be next? Would love to see them do Macho Man. I think that would be a smart business move for them. We'll see where it ends up going. But those are just a couple other figure companies I forgot about. So that is a little bit of an update. A few of the other things to talk about in 2026 as we lead into 2027 that I think are going to be pivotal in the action figure world is the rise of 3D printing. Now, that's something I really don't understand. I mean, I understand it, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to start it. I wouldn't even know where to begin. And it reminds me a heck of a lot of back in the 90s. All the 90s, a beautiful time. Young Kyle went to CompUSA and mortgaged his bicycle, basically. Maybe more than that. But I bought a CD burner back in the day. It was an external one to go to your desktop, and it cost over $1,000. Now, in this day and age, CDRs are basically free. I mean, 20 years ago, they were almost free. A lot of places with the purchase of a desktop, or you'd have a mail-in rebate or whatever. But I paid $1,000 for a CD burner. And then at that time, you would hopefully get rebates on these CDRs, but they came out to $1 or $2 a piece. And guess what? They didn't always work. They would fault in the middle of it. It took forever to burn a CD. There was a lot of shenanigans with it, but it was a big deal for me once upon a time. And that's a story for the podcast one of these days. But that's where 3D printing reminds me. I think we've come a long way with 3D printing over the last decade or so, where it was a huge garage space. It was a massive thing where it's dialed down. The price has come down. And I think constant learning, constant improvement will continue. And I do think one of these days it's going to come where Hasbro, Mattel, wherever, you just download the 3D print. You buy it from them. You print it. You make your figure yourself at your house. I don't think we're close to that right now, but I think we're getting closer and closer every day. We're also seeing people make figures and make things for their figures now. And all of that does take money. Maybe it's not as much as it once did, but I think we'll continue to see that rise in the future. Going to be very interesting to stay on top of that one. I should probably try to learn this. I think if you're a fan of action figures, you're going to need to know a little bit more about 3D printing in the future, or you're going to be left in the dust. Same thing with AI. Unfortunately, I hate AI stuff. But man, it seems like it's the wave of the future in jobs, action figures, and all points in between. Even YouTube thumbnails, Todd McFarlane. But that's a big thing. And then the other thing is the rise of kids leaving the action figure game. We see stores cutting back toy sections. Target was just in the news for that recently. Less space in the aisle, more competition between all these toy companies. One will rise, one will fall. And I do think some of these companies we've mentioned in this video, they're going to look different. There's going to be buyouts. There's going to be mergers. There's going to be closing up shop. There's going to be bankruptcies. All points in between could happen to a lot of these companies. And I think you can earmark some that you can think of. I mean, I've said it every single year for the last couple of years. Some of these retro wrestling figure companies are going to go by the wayside, and many of them did. I'm not sure if any will go by the wayside this year that we listed off. I guess we'll see what ends up happening. And it wouldn't be a bad idea for some of these companies to maybe merge together, possibly. I don't know if that's a possibility. There's a lot of egos in the game, as we know, but it'd be interesting to see what would happen if they could join forces or join up in a collaboration effect. I don't know, but I do worry about the rise of kids getting out of action figures, going to their iPads, going to video game systems, something else, is that's not good. That's going to hurt money. That's going to hurt sales. That's going to hurt space at retail. And that would affect a lot of the action figure stuff. But it's the way it is. It's a different world from when I was a little kid. You didn't have as many TV shows. Video games were expensive. They're still expensive, but there wasn't as many options as kids have now. And I think that really does affect action figures. As we hear all the time, adults collect more action figures than anybody, which is a whole nother business topic. And if you're talking about worth of collections, that's a dangerous thing. If only adults are buying this stuff, that's a scary, scary proposition for the future. But there it is, a long-winded rant on 2026 into 2027. Possibly, when we look back, the most pivotal year in action figure history. There's going to be a lot of changes over the next year or so. It'll be very interesting to see where it goes. We put on our business hat, we put on our collector hat, and see what happens and see what the future holds for each and every single one of us in this crazy action figure collecting game. So there it is. But what's your thoughts here? What's your thoughts on these companies? Where do you see this stuff going? What do you think is going to happen with some of these changing properties? There's a lot to digest. Let me know in the comments down below. You made it this far. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Turn on the old notification bell. We got videos every single day. We got 2 YouTube channels with content every day. Check them out. You don't want to miss a video. Check out SirPaul64 on the X, _Kyle_Peterson on Threads, Instagram, TikTok, and TheKylePetersonShow at gmail.com, which is my email address, but also the name of my podcast each and every Tuesday, wherever podcasts are found, with video cast on YouTube. And don't forget, it's all over there on Patreon, YouTube channel memberships, a one-stop shop to support the channel, and you get all the videos early, of course, over there. So for a long-winded video, as we dive in with a little business hat talk, I'm Kyle. See you guys all real soon.
Are we gonna dance or are we gonna play?